Out Bosses, Rhodes Perry here, and welcome back to The Out Entrepreneur, a weekly podcast where I get to interview today's most inspiring LGBTQ bosses crushing it in business. And on this week's episode, we are back in the studio for another session of our Out Entrepreneur office hours. Because these sessions are relatively new, a quick refresher. Our office hours are designed to support those of us thinking about getting started or growing our businesses by going deeper into some of the themes, topics, and conversations some of the world's best and brightest LGBTQ plus entrepreneurs bring up during our regular episodes that we continue to air every other Tuesday. In between, we have our entrepreneurial office hours, where I, along with my faithful sound engineer, Alon Beausoleil, will riff and reflect back all that we continue to learn from amazing outbosses featured on the show. Together, it's our goal to amplify the wisdom so many LGBTQ plus business owners have shared to deliver the best business advice centered around leveraging our rainbow superpowers. So with that, Alon, let's inspire some outbosses, right?
Let's make it happen.
Let's do it. Okay. If you're following these little office hour sessions, previous sessions have focused on, the first one was finding a business idea. The second was focused on stepping into the entrepreneurial mindset. Then we went into talking and deconstructing really revenue, profit, and cash flow. So that was a very CPA focused episode. We had Jack Sweetley, friend of the show, on that one. And then last week, we just kind of riffed off of that, talking about money, our relationships to money, and having an abundant business mindset. This week's session, we're going to focus in on a theme that Angelic Williams brought up. She's the founder and CEO of MyUmbrella. We had her on episode 131 of the show. And she mentioned this challenge that she had, which was really around what to do once a business goal is reached. So specifically, how do we celebrate our successes while resisting the urge to move the goalpost, right? This is a theme, definitely for me. So just like an example, just to frame what we're going to talk about, say you set an annual revenue goal to break some kind of threshold. You want to get to the six figures, the high six figures, the seven figures and beyond, right? And you realize halfway through the year that you've already achieved the goal. You've already reached it. Very rarely do I encounter entrepreneurs, and I definitely fall into this, who will stop, celebrate, and take the rest of the year off. Not that we would, but you could if you reached the goal, right? So we're going to explore this kind of goalpost concept, this idea of moving the goalpost, and get to the core of it, and really just to identify a few ways that we can celebrate our successes. Okay, so Alon, let's first frame our conversation by what we mean by goalposts. So for you, when you're thinking of when you first started your business, for example, what was a goalpost that you, in hindsight, you met, but felt really big when you were getting started?
Yeah, I'm still in the beginning parts of my pod to the people. So I just have a goalpost that could be seen as a goalpost that I reach, which was I'm in the point where I'm reaching out to clients that I had worked with when I was working for other companies.
Yep.
And I got the first one to come back.
Yeah.
And this was last week.
That's cool.
So, it's not, I don't feel like I'm at the goal and ready to keep going, but I'm at the goal.
Yeah.
So I got to get more of those. So
okay, so that's really interesting. So this is happening real time for you, right? So your goalpost is, I have all of these people kind of, I don't know, this is such a dated way of talking about in your Rolodex or in your contacts on your computer, wherever you worked for in the past, but they're not paying clients right now. So your goalpost was let's get one, to be a paying customer on an ongoing basis. And you've checked it. Okay. So in this moment right now, is it just sounded like how you're talking about is but I need more, so is the goalpost drifting?
Very good question. I could probably be more clear on my goal, to be quite honest.
Okay. Yeah.
So we're thinking maybe I should be more I need to get 3 people back, as a solid goal.
Yeah.
But I felt good that I was able to, because there's some finesse to trying to get people back, since this is a client that I had been subcontracted with through a different company. Mm-hmm. So now I'm not with that company.
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, it's me.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in our first office hour session with the business idea. is this idea that you have to reintroduce yourself. Like people know you. And so this particular client that you just got knew you in a past life, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak, as an employee of ... And so part of this kind of outreach effort is you really have to kind of say, hey, it's me, Alon. You may remember we worked together doing this thing when I worked for blah, blah, blah. Now I'm my own business owner and I'm doing this and I think I can help you, right? And so it takes a little bit of the folks that are in your world professionally have to pivot with you of like, whoa, okay. And it may take a couple of times to remind them of like, no, I'm doing this thing now. Like this is, it's kind of you're rebranding kind of your professional self, I guess.
Sure.
Which sounds weird. It's like your Coca-Cola, but
Right.
but now you're
the
Pepsi.
new Coke, right?
Yeah, the new Coke, Diet Coke. Yeah. So a question on that, when you met this goal, so you have a client, they're paying. So in theory, you met that goalpost that you originally set. And now you're kind of like, you're reevaluating, maybe it should have been more clear. Maybe it should have been this. But like when you set the goal, did you also build in this idea, like when I reach it, I'm going to celebrate and I'm going to celebrate in this way?
No.
Okay.
and I can see that that's an important part of what's going on here.
Yeah. So even though you didn't build that in initially, once you got this client, did you celebrate in any way?
I've celebrated mentally, whereas I was like, this is going to work. I mean, it took a lot of pressure off just knowing that, okay, I can repeat this. It's a repeatable action as well. But probably a little wishy-washy on the goal, which is one of the reasons I'm always glad to be having these conversations.
Yeah, well, these are the office hours, right? So we'll talk a little bit about like gaining a little more clarity and talking about this, building in the celebration metric. But I do like your idea of what you did, celebrating mentally, of just that confirmation that you have a service, you have a product, you have a business, and people are buying it. That first sale is such a confidence booster, I think, for anyone. Once you have revenue coming in, confirming, like, I see this need, I've talked with potential clients, they have these challenges, I now have this service, I have this product to meet those challenges. I put a price tag on it and whoa, someone bought it. Yes. Like that feels good. That definitely feels good. But how do we move from the mental celebration that you're having to something that's tangible, something that you can remember, like making a memory of it? Because I think there is that danger of, I mentally achieve this, yay, pat on the back, and now nose back to the grindstone and make it bigger and faster and better.
Would that be like a physical, I guess it could be a number of things. It could be a physical reward to yourself. I'm going to buy myself this thing, nice dinner. Actually, what I did is I made an investment in my business, is what I did. So I bought a new keyboard, for instance. So.
I think that's a piece. I know for myself, one of the first goals that I started in my business was in my first year, I wanted to bring in enough like net revenue that aligned with the salary that I was making in the last place where I was working for someone else. And that felt like it felt scary, right? Because I had a few people as clients going into doing the work that I do without like the guarantee that there would be future clients. So it did feel like kind of jumping off of a cliff a little bit, even though there were people ready to kind of pay for me to do the work that I do. But, in that first year, I was able to achieve that.
Mm-hmm.
What I didn't do is I didn't like build in, if I achieve this, I'm going to celebrate in some meaningful way. And then I changed that. So that was 2016 was my first year, like doing my own thing in the current business that I have. In 2017, I wanted the goal. That was the year that I was writing a book for 2018 to kind of put it out into the world. And I said to myself, when I put this book out, I'm writing it on this computer. And I never want to see this computer again once it's out.
Right.
So, if it was successful, if it became a bestseller, like I was going to use some of the profit that I gained from the book to get some office furniture for my office and a really nice computer and like a nice setup. And I was able to do that. Like, so that was the difference of that first year at reaching a goal. And then I didn't really, it was kind of anticlimactic.
So maybe it's actually a common thing, what I'm starting to experience. You're kind of describing the same thing.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, that was one of the motivations of doing this episode was, for you, for me, when we had Angelique on the show, She was talking about that challenge of like, okay, so I did the thing, but I have all this other, you kind of go back to your to-do list. I think something that I'm interested in exploring with you is when we set our goals, it's not a to-do list, right? A goal, when we think about like the millions of things that we have to do to keep the business running, those are kind of like everyday actions, like they're kind of the objectives to reach the goal, But what's the big goal for you? And for me, I just try to do it by year. A big, scary, like I'm pushing myself kind of goal that if I reach it, that's going to be a game changer. It's going to take my business to the next level. It's going to bring me personal satisfaction. And I think that, again, goes back to some of the earlier conversations we've had in the office hours where we're thinking about defining what success means to us.
Yeah.
And I think that's that constant, there's the societal pressures of success is all material things. Your business is expanding and growing, and you've got like the house and the cars, and you're traveling the world. And that is great, like if that's your definition of success. But if you're trying to aspire to our Western culture's idea of success, when you get all of those things, if that's not what your soul has been craving, you may look back and say, wow, okay, but there's something still missing because you haven't done that mental work or that kind of meditative work to really kind of get clear on what your goal is. So knowing what we know, right? So we're going back to kind of, you got your client,
Right.
boom, like you're in business, whether you like it or not. And now more people know what you do. They're coming to you. As we look ahead for the next year, how do you think you would do the goal setting a little bit different?
Well, I think my goal actually is to get 10 clients. Yeah. And if I get 10 weekly clients, it will replace my day job kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I need to make a clearer goal. I definitely need to write that up on the wall. 10 clients. And then I will feel pretty celebratory.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. So in 10 clients for you, you've played with that kind of equation in your business to know that that is the sweet spot where you are going to thrive. Like you will be comfortable.
It'll double my income.
It'll double your income. You reach that. It's also what kind of like super confidence booster, right? Because that's now you have like a pool of clients. They're going to refer out and it becomes this kind of snowball thing.
And it's also attainable. So that's an important part of having goals. Some people have the concept is you should just have your goal be so high that if you only get halfway there, you still were a massive success.
Yes. Yep.
What do you think of that concept?
Well, that I was going to ask you. So I was going back to SMART goals,
right.
So what is it? Like strategic, measurable. The A is always the thing. Attainable, like you said, reachable, and time bound. That's kind of the, and this is all based off of the United States military. So take it for whatever it is. Sure. But like you can riff off of it, right? Which is the A, attainable and aggressive. And I think that's the balance of and this is my theory on why entrepreneurs tend to move the goalposts, is sometimes we set attainable goals, but they're not big enough, right? So like that example that I gave in the beginning where say you set, your net revenue, say you want your profit to be in the high whatever, like you attach whatever that number is to what you want to see in your business. But it was attainable for sure, but you reached it like in the first quarter, say, So was that big enough? Was that aggressive enough, I guess? And so without it being, I want to have $1 trillion in profit, in my first year.
And not work at all.
Then it's not, then okay, come on. Like there are steps to this thing, So you want something that you're pushing yourself enough, it's big enough, and it's meaningful for you when you reach it. Like if you reach it, it really is something where you're taking that step to the next level. And I think that's going to be something that's different for everybody. And that goal has to be in alignment with your definition of success. So does that make sense?
It does make sense. So maybe there's a happy medium there.
Yeah.
And I think we talked about last week, what's it like if you don't reach your goals? And how do you deal with that as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So in not reaching your goals, let's park that for a second. Right. Because I want to kind of get to, for this particular office hours, we've met the goal, but linking it with celebration, right? Like linking it with how are you going to hit the pause button so that you resist the urge to move the goalpost and just keep working and burning yourself out.
And give yourself, it's like a little refresher as well.
Yeah, because that reflection piece is often, I mean, for me, I'm building this more in where a goal is reached. It's not so much like, I mean, I use the computer example because I just needed a computer upgrade. So that was
right.
like I do this thing and there's that. But for me, like one of the best things is taking time off, taking time to reflect, and being out in nature. Like I'm just like, I find my soul lights up when I'm outdoors and the sun is shining on me and I'm on top of a mountain or something like that. It's kind of like there's a push to achieve a goal with like at the end, once that goal is met, I'm going to take a pause. I'm going to take a break. I'm going to reset, remember what lights me up in life beyond doing work that I'm really passionate about, but like the whole person. And usually when I'm out in those settings, that's when there's some kind of a cosmic download of like, here's the next idea.
That's what I was going to say as well. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of relaxed at that moment. And within reflection, we're kind of thinking about what worked as well, how that goal was achieved, even if we're doing something that we're outside doing something because that was attained, even if that's not in the front of our mind, it's still there because we know we're out doing something because of this.
Yeah. And kind of building that stuff in every day too, where it's not like you have to do this work towards this one big thing and that's the only time that you're able to do the thing that resets you. So kind of thinking about for me, like the big thing is, spending 2 weeks out in nature, right? After attaining the big goal. But every day, just to kind of say, these are the top 2 or 3 things that I want to accomplish today. And in order to get there, I'm going to take a walk in the morning, or once the day is done, if I get 2 of the 3 things done, great. I'm going to stop at this particular hour. I'm going to go to a yoga class or something that's just like something totally where my brain is not in the business thing.
Yeah, it's walking for me as well.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, and I think there's some kind of science behind the bipedal movement where when you're walking in particular, it allows you to kind of problem solve. There's some science around that. So
it's movement, it really is.
Yeah.
So then you're in movement. It would make sense that your thoughts would be kind of more moving and open to expansion.
Yeah. And the expansion, I think, then goes back to our goal setting. I want to go back to, for ambitious entrepreneurs and business leaders, it can be easy for us to get caught up in the hype of goals in particular. I am definitely guilty of that. And putting kind of these big goals up on a pedestal and just being like kind of bowing down to them of like, I will get there. I want to go back to a point that I touched on where it's this piece of success. Do you have a way to look back on your successes in order to appreciate what is happening now and what will happen when you move forward? So knowing like the last time we had an office hours, you were talking about this like massive stadium that you were performing in.
Right.
And doesn't that give you, when you look back, I mean, for me, like when you told me that story, I'm like, that is amazing. Doesn't that give you confidence in the work that you do where you're like, I'm an established musician. I've done all these great things. And now I'm here to help other musicians like develop quality sound to get their creations out in the world.
It is. And I think you're touching on something here that's a good common theme, which is sometimes you're too close to it to appreciate it as it's happening as well. It's definitely like the look back, like, wow, I did that. That happens to me a lot, actually. I could be maybe in the moment a little more and see it as it's happening in the moment instead of like 6 months or a year later being like, oh, I did it.
Yeah.
I did it 6 months ago, right? I should have celebrated then.
Yeah. Do you have something though, like right now, when you look back and you're thinking about what's ahead, like you appreciate like, yes, it's building a business. There's a lot ahead. But is there something in particular from something that you've accomplished in the past, a goal that you accomplished in the past that you look on and you're like, yo, I did this thing. And because I did this thing, I know even though what I'm doing right now is hard, nothing could have been as hard as what I was able to overcome in the past. Like
definitely. So I moved I lived out of the country for over 10 years and moved back.
Yeah.
Didn't work in the United States for 10 years.
Yeah.
And just through some perseverance and sweat equity, I ended up here at NetSpace.
Yeah.
And so that has definitely led to my business now.
Yeah.
So I felt really good about that. It actually took a long time, and it took the leap of faith, as they say.
Yeah.
I didn't go and get another job right away. I didn't make it easy on myself. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
But in the end, I get to do this really cool thing now, and I get paid for it. I get to meet people and, like you, make friends. And then all that has spurred the Pod to the People business.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that speaks to something that comes up during our regular episodes of The Out Entrepreneur, which is this, when we start talking about superpowers and lived experiences, the resilience, the things that may not have been so great, the things that have been challenging to us, sometimes give us the resiliency in our businesses to just be like, you know what, I am the architect of my own life. There's not really a roadmap of being born in the United States, expatriating, living in Japan for 10 years, learning a completely new language, culture, making it work there, and then coming back. I mean, that truly is, you're carving out your own life path, and it's pretty cool, of what I know about you, that's really shaped you, and it gives you the confidence in business, right?
And you said a word, map, that I use a lot, that I say, our experiences are the maps to who we are.
Ah, I love that.
So that we got there, the map is still there, So it's all of our experiences before is the map to who we are now.
Our experiences are the maps to who we are now. Yeah. And I mean, that's who we are as a whole person, right? And so our business is a fraction of the whole, right?
Right.
But it certainly, it's an influence, right? So I know for me, when I think about things that are hard, I'm just like, and I know I've said this on the show before, but it's like I was able to manage a gender transition.
That's amazing.
That's like less than 1% of people in this country. So, that gives me a unique perspective, and that was certainly not easy. At the same time, I think about challenges in business, and it's just like, if it's just, we're not handed a roadmap of how to kind of build successful businesses other than learning from other people, which is the whole reason why we have this show, is a way to connect with business leaders that are a little bit ahead on the path and learning kind of the map that they were able to kind of like utilize. And maybe there's some directions in the map that help us kind of adapt and find a pathway forward. And oftentimes, we learn from others, and that's helpful, and we still have to problem solve on our own.
But there's still detours on the map.
There's totally detours on the map.
And so if you're lucky, someone's going to be like, hey, just so you know, like 10 blocks up, you should go left instead of right.
Right. And that person that's able to guide you is often able to kind of help you assess where you're at now, to say, okay, I've got the directions for the future. What of all of those directions, how do I prioritize about what the next move is? And that can help inform your goal. And it could help you think long-term about your own successful kind of destination, right? Like, it's all about the journey, and we're always going to be on the journey, but what is the vision of success for, like, what is that destination that is success for you? And to resist the urge of leaning on other people's definitions of success. Although maybe some of those definitions sound sexy to you, and that's what you want too, right? Like, where that feels like, okay, your definition of success, yeah, I can kind of see myself there, and that, not totally, but it is shaping my own, right?
Yeah, it's like halfway between possibility model and imposter syndrome all at the same time or something.
Yeah. Hi, Outbosses. Rhodes Perry here. As you all know, part of my passion for this podcast is to empower you and fellow LGBTQ entrepreneurs to cultivate a feeling of purpose and belonging in your business, to know you can show up and be the most authentic version of yourself. Purpose, belonging, and workplace culture are concepts I take seriously in my own consulting practice. I'm dedicated to growing the belonging movement to empower leaders just like you, from the largest organizations to the smallest, to build healthier workplaces. That's why I'm thrilled to share everyday practices you can take to build more inclusive workplaces and my best-selling book, Belonging at Work. The book features some of today's leading diversity, equity, and inclusion thought leaders who share some of their wisdom, skills, and stories to give you the confidence necessary to stitch a sense of belonging into the fabric of your organization. To get your own copy of the book, visit rhodesonamazon.com. There you can find a paperback, Kindle, Audible, and hard copy version of the book. Again, that's rhodesonamazon.com. Together, let's grow the belonging movement. So let's kind of like then go to thinking about getting clear on success for us, and then some of the goals that can help us get to our definition of success. So as you think about doing goal setting differently now, so you've got like this concept of 10 clients. How did you first arrive at 10 clients, other than like outside of the business model? Like what was your process? Meaning that when you came up with the goal, were you walking? Were you meditating? How did you kind of like clear out space just to have enough of that creative energy to kind of say, all right, I need to have an attainable and aggressive goal. How did you do that?
I did write it down, actually. So
you documented it.
Yeah, I documented it. I do. Every couple months, I try to sit down with a big piece of paper, actually.
Yeah.
I don't like whiteboards on the wall so much. I like just a big slab right in front of me on the ground.
A canvas.
Right.
Yeah, that's
and
cool.
and I go through and I write down stuff, and it's kind of a poem at the same time. I write it like that, so it looks sexy.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Do you use markers?
I use markers, colors. I draw on there. I spell words in ways that they shouldn't be spelled, with like a K instead of a C or whatever, just to make it look like...
It's like magic.
Right, yeah, exactly. To make it look appealing, or that's all shiny and different. So that's how I got that one.
Yeah.
I do include a lot of stuff on that piece of paper that aren't always specifically related to each other.
Yeah.
But they probably all are in the end, actually.
Yeah. No, I really like this idea of documenting, and it kind of goes back to this is from the folks at Being Boss, who have a podcast on creative entrepreneurship. But the idea of they do the chalkboard method, which might help you kind of achieving your goals of the 10 clients, where they basically take a big piece of kind of like butcher paper or something like that. Or actually, they talked about the chalkboard method. That's what they call it. But they kind of write the months of January through December, and they give big spaces for each month. And they kind of write, we want 5 clients. And so they write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for each month. And they have that mapped out. So there's 60 possible people that they can work with over 12 months. And the amazing thing is that's their intention. And then it fills, they start to, obviously they're doing marketing and they're doing all the business stuff, but that kind of fills up, so that could be, one potential way for you to get to the 10 clients is just, kind of mapping out the seasons, the quarters in the year, 3 or 4 clients in the first quarter, second quarter, et cetera. So there's some magic to the documentation that can both help you kind of get clear on the goal, and that goal hopefully leads to the definition of success that you have, right?
It actually is like a physical manifestation as well, because you've got this thing. Yeah, real different. Thinking about things and like writing them down are real different, actually. It's really a different kind of process. You have to check yourself as well. Like, I'm writing this down, so this is really what I'm shooting for. This is what I'm thinking. Whereas when I'm thinking, I can go wherever I want.
Yeah. And I think that's the piece of entrepreneurship, right? Like here's maybe a kind of like glimmer, part of my idea of what a successful entrepreneur is to take these ideas. We get a zillion ideas a day, right? That's what we do. We come up with ideas, but to take the one that seems like most in alignment with what you want to do in your business, pull it from kind of like where it comes from in the magic space of your brain, and then start to develop a plan around it, right? And start like writing it on paper. That's the first step. Like, develop a plan of like, now that, I'll use the podcast, for example, in 2016, when I first started my business, I really wanted mentorship. I wanted to connect with other LGBT business owners of like, how did you build it? How did you do your thing? And so in 2016, I said, I want to start a podcast, and that's going to be my big goal for 2017 is to launch it. What do I need to do to fill in that space to get there? So I was doing lots of other client work, but I knew that this was going to be a big part of what I wanted to do in business. And so I took a class on how to podcast. I learned how to do all the tech stuff myself initially. And I just started to kind of have these objectives that led to the goal of then launching it. So I agree with you, like documenting, writing down, getting clear on the goal. And I think maybe even just going back to the idea of meditating or going for a walk or whatever it is that allows you to get some clarity. So I would say, as we're talking about this step of goal setting, I would love for people, if you're listening right now, just to kind of hit the pause button on the podcast and spend about 5 minutes in silence. If you're not a meditator, that's okay. Just kind of like turn the distractions off and just kind of tune in for yourself, what your soul desires when it comes to your own business. And, what makes your heart sing, right? That's oftentimes I ask my guests in business, what makes their heart sing? So for you, just figure out, think about it, just for those 5 minutes, maybe put a timer on. After the 5 minutes are up, if you're someone who documents like us, take a pen and just write down some of the things that popped up. And you might be surprised with what those breadcrumbs lead to. If you just give yourself that space to think a little bit, 5 minutes. I mean, we all can carve out 5 minutes, I hope.
Totally.
I hope that's possible, And then I think the second piece to the goal setting, which we've both kind of shared our kind of like fumbling of like, okay, we've set the goals and we get clarity around the goals, but like how then, like when we reach that big goal for the year or, whatever the time bound kind of period is for you, in the beginning, when you're setting the goal, attach the celebration piece to the goal. Like I gave the example of the book writing. Like if I get the book out and it gets to bestseller status, I'm going to get myself a new computer. Like that was a material goal or a materials celebration, right? But what's the thing that you would attach to achieving that goal? So Alon, for you, you've got 10 clients, like it's the end of the year, you achieve the goal. Success is here. You're ready to celebrate. What's the celebration?
I would probably go somewhere.
Where would you go?
I would go somewhere warm. So I do like Hawaii a lot.
Okay. It's getting clear.
Right.
We're starting to see it. Which island?
Let's see. I've been to the Big Island. I've been to Oahu quite a few times. So I would like to go to the large island, the Big Island.
The Big Island.
Yeah.
It's like you're on another planet.
That's totally what I'm going to want to do is go to a different planet when I reach that goal.
A different planet. You'll be like with mountains, like there'll be like beautiful, beautiful coral reefs. So it's like when you're thinking about that celebration, if you're traveling, in addition to that big white canvas that you have, maybe like cut out some magazine pictures of Hawaii, of the Big Island in particular.
Sure.
Because that helps us. Again, it's like taking this idea of like, I want to travel. I want to go somewhere warm. You're getting more and more specific. And just like with our goals, the more specific we are, the more likely we can visualize ourselves having that. Like we're in the mindset, it's already here. Right?
I really like that idea of connecting the two because that's extra motivation as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, you see it in your business. You're clear on it in your business. You even have like the months of like when you want to see those clients start to manifest. And then December, it's rainy in Portland, it's cold. Boom, you got a plane ticket. Like what airline would you fly?
Delta, of course.
There you go. Okay. The show is not sponsored by Delta, but we would welcome any support.
That's where my miles are. That's
there you
why I
go.
was bringing it up.
Okay. All right. That's cool. All right. So, so you've got the sense, you're clear on the celebration piece. There's a couple other aspects to the thing. So I want to talk about, since we've used this analogy of the goalposts. So I don't know if people are into football. I went to Notre Dame, so football is a thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I'm familiar with. So you play the field then. So in other words, you took the idea, which is your goal. You have celebration once you achieve the goal. Now
do a
you
little
have
dance.
And that's at the end. But in the middle, before you do the touchdown dance, if we're doing that analogy and the goal post hasn't moved,
Gotcha.
you know where the end zone is, what are the plays to get there? You've talked about in the beginning with the initial goal that you set of just getting the first client, and you wanted to do the outreach. So the outreach is a part of it. What are some of the other ways that you're going to play the field to get to the end zone?
Yeah, I think it's going to be consistency for me.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to have to be consistent with my path to get there. So at least my motivation of my path to get there.
Yeah.
For me personally, that's consistency and dedication is still my biggest barrier, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's what it's going to be for me personally. I'm sure that applies to a lot of people as well. I get easily distracted, and that's
Yeah.
something that I need to keep my head in the game.
Absolutely. I mean, that's kind of like the discipline, right? So if we're going to continue with this analogy, but if you're an athlete, you have to train. It's not just like showing up for the big game. You have to do all the work in advance. And so I think that's a really good point that you brought up. In entrepreneurship, there's a lot of self-discipline we have to have. And it's good to kind of, set up how you want to structure your days, your weeks, et cetera, that works for you. I mean, that's part of the power. So if you want to work Tuesday through Thursday, cool. But during that time, you really have to kind of turn it on to do the work, right? And consistency lends to legitimacy in your business. So if people can count on you for showing up and doing the things, you got it going. And you just have to define, and maybe that's future office hours of your ideal work day and kind of like the seasons of when you want to work. Do you want to take 4 weeks off? You want to take 4 months off out of the year? You want to be like Tim Ferriss of the 4-hour workday? I mean, there's lots of different ways to do it, but you have to figure out what's going to work for you that will help you kind of play the field to get to the goals, right? And go into that consistency thing. As an example for me with kind of leading up to the 2018 publishing the book, for me, playing the field was like, I want to have a best-selling book that will help grow a movement and inspire people to have, feeling a sense of belonging at work. And that they, no matter their role, can participate in being active player, like change agents in their workplace to do that. So in order to get there, I had to write the thing, so I had to have the discipline of like showing up in addition to running a business, but like writing a book and spending time with the concepts, researching. So you got the manuscript, then you have to think about, okay, what's the mission of the book? And like, how do I design a cover and market and sales and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's one step at a time, like playing the field is one play at a time to kind of move down the field. So I'm just sharing that as an example, just to kind of
makes sense. And with the football analogy, sometimes you actually go back a few yards.
Yes. And I think then that goes to, okay, like you have this goal, you want to score a touchdown or win the game, whatever, however we're going to take this analogy. And my apologies for people that are not into football or sports. It just makes sense in my mind. So come up with a fun analogy for you. But, there will be some fumbles, right? There will be some kind of 2 steps forward, maybe 1 step back. And to me, that's information. Like, how do you transform that? What feels like a failure, like say that, you reach out to 50 possible clients, and 49 of them say no. Well, that's cool because now you're like 49 steps closer to the next yes, right? So, rejection is definitely a part of this work. So having a support system, having something in place where if you do get a no, if you get a lot of no's, what's something that's going to make you feel like, okay, I'm getting closer to yes, like how do you turn that around, and you might need to have a person in your life or quotes of famous entrepreneurs who are dead, but
Right.
what they talk about failure and how they reframe that. Because to me, I do think that it's important information that you have to consider. So if people are saying no to a concept that you're just testing, that might not be the business concept that you're going to move forward with, but you do have information of getting curious. Oh, you had said no, and thank you for considering what might make this stronger, or what might the service or product, if we redesigned it, what would you look for, and just kind of get
that
clear,
makes sense.
And talk with potential clients about what they're struggling with, just asking and getting curious. So, I mean, I think that maybe that we've circled back to like, if you don't reach your goals and fail, like, what does that mean?
For me, it's like, if I reach 10%, I feel pretty good. I have kind of a 10% rule, like, yes.
Yeah.
If I reached out to 10 people and one of them came through, I'm like winning.
Yeah. I mean, it's a yes, it's a paying client. And like the other thing that you have to think about, if you do a service-based business, you have a paying client. What is the lifespan of that client? So, you're working on a project, it's going to end in 6 months, 6 years, whatever it is. Like there's going to be a sunset period. Provided you do a great job, that particular client is a referral source. Like, at the end, you could have a client satisfaction survey. And maybe one of the questions you ask is, if you're really happy with the services we provided, can you think of like 2 or 3 other people who could benefit from this? Really easy way of kind of building out like a referral loop. I mean, there's lots of other creative ways to do it, and I'm by no means an expert on that. But
Yeah,
I do
I've
think,
thought of like if you send a reference my way and it works out for 3 episodes, I'll give you a free episode.
there you go.
3, the next one is free.
Yeah.
So, kind of like that. So you want to motivate people to help you, and people are motivated by saving money. So that's kind of my first immediate thought is I'll set it up like that.
Yeah. I was inspired when I was first getting started on doing more of my like inclusion coaching work, was this idea that another entrepreneur was doing where it was the 3 for 30. So in her monthly newsletters, she would send out, hey, I am in my coaching practice, these are the kind of services that I offer. I'm carving out 3 free 30-minute sessions where we can focus in on one area that you'd like to talk with me about based on my expertise. And, sure enough, those filled up. She did a great job. Then those folks actually, some of them, not all, wanted to kind of continue working with her as a coach. So, there's lots of creative ways when you're just getting started. If your goal is like, I need to find clients, I need to find people that are wanting to work with me, ways to kind of demonstrate your skills without giving everything away, so that it just inspires people to be like, whoa, Alon does like really great editing work for podcasts or for music production, right? And I'm really lucky that I got something that normally costs X amount of dollars at discount. And I really like his work. I want to keep working with him, and continue at the full freight, I guess is what they say. Right?
Yeah.
So
I have a kind of question for you. How hard are you on yourself? If you're like, I'm going to work Tuesday through Friday, and you wake up Wednesday and you're not feeling it.
I'm probably the worst boss I've ever had. So I'd probably be very bad to answer this because I'm more of a power through it type of person. I think what I need to build in my own work is when I'm starting to feel the signs of burnout, just take a break, go for a bike ride.
Right.
And I've been doing a little bit more of that, but I'm pretty hard on myself in terms of just chill out, dude.
It's a testament to your success as well, though.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
that you are that hard on yourself.
Yeah, well, I don't think it has to be that way, though. So I just want to caveat that, like, I think in our culture, this idea of busyness is success. I think that that's like dangerous.
I couldn't agree more.
I think it kind of turns us into machines. And so I think, I'm going to say, especially for entrepreneurs, but I think this probably extends for workers in general, that we have to bring humanity back into the workplace. So I'm thinking of Erica Keswin's book, Bring Your Human to Work, where it's this idea where like we're human, we're biological, we're not robots. So breaks and taking care of ourselves and having joy, taking vacations, all of that stuff, like we need that. And as entrepreneurs, we need that double dose, I would say.
That all increases efficiency as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like you were saying, if you're starting to feel burnt out, you're not going to get that much done. You're just going to be in some feedback loop or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And you can be fiddling with things. And I think like if you're starting to feel the signs of overwhelm, burnout, you wake up on a Wednesday, like you said, and you're just kind of like, this is too much, that it's okay to take breaks. I think the things that make breaks even more effective is when you build systems. So like the goal, like living the dream is like you can automate as much in your own business, even if you're a solopreneur, where there's ways that you can step away from your desk and the business is not going to implode because you're not there. And so, if you're just getting started, it's really, really important for you to think about, of all the things that I do, how much can I automate? Where if I'm not ready to hire someone to delegate work, at least like the software can do maybe like 40% of scheduling and things that just take up a lot of time. So that's one thing that I think we could gift ourselves is to, when we're taking time out to kind of reflect, what's success for me? What's my big goal for the year? How do I get there? How do I play the field? Is how can I be a better boss to myself by employing, technology that's relatively free or low cost, online that will gift me back time so that if I'm making an investment in my business, I have more time to be out in the world to talk with people about how awesome my business is, right? Like, does that answer your question? Or
That doesn't make sense. Yeah.
okay, yeah, kind of taking care of yourself. We'll definitely jump into that in future episodes. What are you thinking for the next office hours? Any kind of themes pop up in this conversation?
Where could we go? Where could we go?
I know there's so many places to go. So as Alon is kind of like picking his brain, for other folks out there, if there are conversations that you want to hear us have, topics that are stumping you on how, I'm not sure of the next business move, share those with us in our Facebook community. There's the Out Entrepreneur Facebook community. It's a group. I think it's a closed group, but if you request to join it, I certainly will invite you in. I would love to hear, what you're craving to kind of talk about. Who knows? Like if you want to be a guest when we're doing office hours, we're happy to kind of like do a case study with your business and maybe offer support where we can, or at least a little bit of encouragement. For sure, we can give you ample amounts of encouragement. So yeah, so if you're thinking about questions, please submit those on Facebook in the community if you're active in Facebook. And, another good way is just thinking about sharing feedback wherever you consume podcasts, probably most active on the Apple podcast area. So leave a comment there if you like these conversations, if you have suggestions on things to talk about. And then for our regular shows, if you're thinking about amazing LGBT out entrepreneurs doing awesome work in the world, always love those suggestions as well. Any ideas that came up while I was chatting?
Etiquette. Because I know some people that are extremely aggressive and successful, and it seems weird to me.
Yeah. Well, as you were saying, like, oh, it's such a good thing that you're always going. I was just thinking of, I won't say his name, but there's a particular famous entrepreneur out there that's always talking about the hustle and the grind and just going 24/7. I don't want to be that entrepreneur. And I think that comes with that piece of aggressiveness and just always out there in people's faces and talking about how hard this is. I don't think it has to be that way. It can be however you want it to be.
The balance between like self-promotion and just doing good enough work that people are promoting for you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's a thing too. So, okay, we're getting some good topics here. So help Alon, help myself kind of build off of these by sharing your own ideas in the community. I think we covered a lot around goal setting, success.
Most definitely.
We jumped into some other areas as well, as we tend to do in office hours. That's just how these sessions go. So thank you everyone for tuning in. It's always fun to connect with you and chat with Alon as we dive deeper into some of the topics that come up on the show. For details from today's conversation, you can go to outentrepreneur.com and we'll have some resources over there, some things that might help you with goal setting and defining your definition of success. So again, consider subscribing to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, leaving a rating and review, and consider sharing the show with a friend, colleague, or loved one if you think this can help them out. And as always, keep being your authentic selves 100% of the time.